Sorry about that. Someone came in. I talked to my stepbrother for a good, I don't know, 50 minutes. Yeah. Oh, you guys are sick, I know. I guarantee all you NFL athletes like, holy shit, Ivan, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? The CFL really has a bias towards the American players. Yes, they do. Yeah. Excuse the noise. There's a sprinkler outside. Was really long, guys. I'll talk for maybe an hour and 10 minutes, guys. I'm done. I don't want me too long. I'll talk for maybe a good 50 minutes, an hour, and I'm done, guys. This video will not be as long as my recent videos. So I made 3 videos straight. Yeah. All the NFL players, like, holy shit, that's crazy, man. Like Ivan, like dude, Ivan, like really, like, all the best Canadian players in Canada don't get an opportunity to play pro football in the CFL. They get the opportunity to play, but they have limited opportunity to shine. Like most of the Canadian players are not starters who are drafted in the CFL. And a lot of the draft picks in the CFL get released. A good chunk of them get released, or end up on the practice roster. Only a few of them get to be star players in the CFL. Why? Who are most of the star players in the CFL? The O linemen. You know what I'm saying? Tom Brady is like, holy shit, that's true. Yeah, Tom, it's true, man. That's crazy, man. I guarantee all the NFL players, yeah, but I've been like us American players in the States, you know what I'm saying, are a bit better than you Canadian players. Yes, but yes, you guys are a little bit better than us. But in Canada, all these American players, obviously, all these American players who are NFL rejects who play in the CFL, they're not as valuable up here. You know what I'm saying? And Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, are like, why, Ivan? The reason why you guys are not that valuable up here, the American rejects, who do not have an NFL opportunities, the NFL rejects, is because even though the American players who come to the CFL are a little bit better than the best Canadian players. Are the American players in the CFL much better than the best Canadian players? No. There's not that really much of a difference, but they're a little bit better, obviously. That's why they all start. They're a little bit more talented. I told you there's some of the best Canadian all-star players in the CFL who are just as good. A lot of these Canadian all-star players are just as good as the CFL all-stars. There's some of them who are even better than some of the American CFL all-stars in some cases. But in most cases, the American players have a bit of edge over us Canadian players in talent. Yeah, but if they have a bit of edge over you guys in talent, then that means they should be more valuable to your CFL. I know, guys, you guys don't understand. Even though they have a bit more edge to us Canadian players up here in Canada, obviously, um, because they're American, the Canadian fans don't really care that much about them. They don't know anything about them. The Canadian players are more valuable to the Canadian fans than the Canadian players because they're Canadian and they love them more and they have a bias. Obviously, yeah, but Ivan, like the American players who play in the CFL are a bit better than you Canadian players. Yes, they are guys, but like even though they're a bit better than us, they're not the best players playing in America, guys. They're NFL rejects. Whereas the best players in Canada who are drafted in the CFL are actually the best players in Canada. Just like all the best players in the NCAA end up in the NFL. All the best players in the CIS in Canada, which is college football up here in Canada, they end up in the CFL. Obviously, that you know what I'm saying. And because even though these American players in the states who play in the CFL obviously are a bit better than the American players in most cases. Not all the time. Some Canadian players in Canada are even better than some of the American players. But in most cases, the American players are better than the Canadian players. What? Even though they're a bit better, obviously, the Canadian fans don't really care that much about them because they're American and they can't relate to them. Yeah, we get the picture. Yeah, like you know what I'm saying. Even though these American guys are a bit more talented than the Canadian players, when they come up here, like all these Canadian fans who watch the CFL, they're clueless. They don't know who these guys are. They're American. They can't relate. They didn't watch them play NCAA in the states. You know what I'm saying? And the Canadians all know that the Americans, oh, you guys, and coming up here in the CFL are your NFL rejects. That's why the fans don't really see them as valuable as the Canadian players, and they don't really care that much about them. I said, Patrick Mahomes not very yard, that makes sense. Yes. All you NFL players are, that makes sense. Yes. That's why us Canadian players, we don't see you American players who come in the CFL as valuable players compared to us Canadian players. Because even though you got all you American players who play up here in the CFL, you may be a bit better than us. Like all us Canadian fans, we know you guys are not the best players in America. You're the NFL rejects. Hence why all these Canadian fans in the CFL, even though they love the CFL American Stars, they don't really care that much about these guys because they see these guys as rejects in the NFL. Yeah, they may be a bit more talented, but like they're not the best talent in the States. They're NFL leftover rejects. We don't, you know what I'm saying? We don't really know anything about these guys. We don't really care about these guys. We care more about the best talent up here in Canada. Obviously, the Americans may be more talented, but like at least us Canadian guys, all you American CFL players, at least us Canadian players playing in the CFL, we can actually say we're the best players playing in Canada, right? Whereas even though you guys have edge over us in talent, you guys can't say that. You guys are not the best players in America. The best players in America are all end up in your NFL. Yeah. Patrick was not very high. That makes sense. Yeah. The reason why the Canadians and the CFL are worth more because they're the best talent in Canada. That's why they're worth more to the Canadian League, Football League, and the Canadians than the American players. The American players may be a bit better than the best Canadian talent in Canada, but they're not the best American talent. The best American talent are all you NFL guys, are like Patrick Mahomes, I'm saying. Those are all the best American talent, so they're not as valuable to the Canadian League. Does that make sense? I never make sense. Yeah, I agree with Jason. I don't want to blow your mind away. So yeah. Am I right doing for Ivan? You're right. That's true. Yes. The Canadian players are more valuable. Yeah, Ivan, they're more valuable. Yeah, they're more valuable. Because the Canadian players are actually the best talent in Canada, right? The American players who come up to the CFL, they may be a bit better in talent, but they're not the best talent in America. The best talent in America are in the NFL. Obviously. They're amazing talent because a lot of these CFL players, like some of them are good enough for the NFL. They just didn't get that opportunity. They weren't lucky, obviously. But most of them are obviously not good enough for the NFL. But some of them are obviously good enough for the NFL. They just didn't get their opportunity, right? And there's some of them who obviously are not good enough, who are NFL cuts, who come up here, and you know what I'm saying, and the Canadian fans, they don't really care that much about these guys. They don't know who they are, and they all know all you guys are NFL rejects, and that's why all the other players are. That makes sense. Yeah. Got some Sarah? Yeah. I have a genius. I know I'm a genius, obviously. Why do you think the best talent in Canada can compete with the best talent in America? I think they compete, but the best talent in America would beat them pretty bad, obviously. Obviously. Like if the CFL was all Canadian, if the CFL was an all Canadian league, and you had the CFL All Stars who are the All Star Canadians versus the NFL All Stars who are the All Star American players, I think they would hold their own against the American players. But the NFL All Stars would probably beat them pretty bad, honestly. Maybe a 50-20 game, 50-22 game. They beat you guys would beat us pretty bad. I think us All Star Canadians can hold their own against you guys, as Team Canada beat Team USA in I'm saying. But the NFL All Stars would beat us pretty bad, obviously. It'd be maybe a 50, I don't know, a 55, maybe like 20 game. You guys would beat us pretty bad. But I think we can hold our own not pretty well against you guys. But you guys would beat us pretty bad, obviously. Obviously. Yeah. I don't know, a 55-20 game. Yeah, we get beat pretty bad, obviously. I'm not gonna lie, right? But don't underestimate the Canadian talent, right? The Canadian talent's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. All right, some of the American players think they're worth more than the Canadian players in Canada. Yeah, because a lot of these CFL All Stars are amazing players and they have edge over talent than the Canadian players. Some of them do think they're worth more than the Canadian players because they're a bit more talented, but they're actually not worth more than the Canadian players because people up here don't really care about these guys, man. They're NFL rejects who people in Canada can't resonate with. They don't know who they are. They don't really care that much about them. The fans love them when they're CFL stars, but because they're American and they don't really they didn't grow up watching them in college. They don't know who these guys are. They can't resonate with them. They don't really care that much about these guys, right? Yeah. And what? They know they're rejects from the NFL. That's why the Canadian fans in Canada, they don't really care that much about these American guys. Does that make sense? All the NFL guys, yeah, that makes sense. All the guys who end up in your CFL, even though they're a bit better than you, the best Canadian players, they're not the best talent in America, whereas you Canadians the best talent in Canada. That's why you're more valuable. Yes, to the Canadian people. Whereas and the talent who ends up in your CFL, they're not the best talent in America. Yeah, they're not the best talent in America. The best talent in America are you guys, obviously, who are playing in the NFL. That's the best talent in America, right? That's how it works, right? Yeah. Best players playing in the NCAA end up in the NFL. Best players playing in the CIS in Canada end up in the CFL. But what the CFL's doing, you know what I'm saying, even though they're drafting all the best college players in Canada, they're limiting their opportunity to shine up here. They're giving all these rejects, NFL rejects, who the fans in Canada don't really care about. I'm talking UCFL, their opportunity to shine. And you think because the quality's a bit better, you're going to grow the league by doing this when no one really cares about these guys. CFL, man, they don't really care about these American guys. Like, you really think growing the Canadian Football League with the American talent is the way to go? It's not the way to go. Growing the Canadian Football League is by promoting the homegrown Canadian talent. It's not promoting the American talent. Because this is the Canadian Football League. This is Canada, Canadian football. Why are you promoting the Canadian Football League with the American talent when you should be promoting the Canadian Football League with the Canadian talent? But I we do promote the Canadian Football League with the Canadian talent. Yeah, only like a few guys here and there, but like most of the players you promote, guys, on your TSN nationwide promo that I see all the time, is always all these American guys who I don't even know, who I don't really care about, man. You guys from Sarah? Yeah. Like every couple season, you see this upcoming receiver, this upcoming quarterback and all stuff. Because the CFO brings all these NCAA undrafted, unsigned NFL free agents. You know what I'm saying? They bring all these guys up to the CFL, and some of them get their time to shine in the CFL, and they're CFL stars, and they promote them on the TSN promo during the games. You know what I'm saying? And all these Canadian players who are watching the game, they don't even know who these guys are, man. Yeah, some of them know who they are, obviously. Like a lot of the CFL, the hardcore CFL fans, they when they become stars, they recognize them. But some of the television viewers who are viewing the TSN promo CFL, when you play your the games on TV, all these people who watch in Canada, they don't know who these guys are when you promote them. And the CFL's trying their best to promote them on the TSN promo thing. We're trying. Yeah, you guys are trying your best to promote all these American stars. They're amazing players, obviously, who come up here. But like all these Canadian fans in the CFL, they're not resonating with these guys. They don't really care about these guys, man. Am I right doing for it, Ivan? That's true. No, you're a genius. I know, son. Yeah. Yeah. Ivan, do you respect the CFL CFL All Stars? Yes, I do. Of course, I do. They're amazing players, obviously. They're amazing players, and the CFL fans love them, and they're amazing talent. They make the game better, but there's no growth in the league, guys, because they're American players. They may be a bit better than the Canadian players, but there's no growth in your league because you're doing your very best to promote them on your TSN promo thing for your games. You know what I'm saying? And yet, a lot of these Canadian fans who are watching all over Canada, they don't know who these guys are, man. When you do your TSN promo for the game, for your live games, right, on the broadcasts on TV, these people don't know who these guys are. Yeah. I'm sorry? They don't know. Some people know, obviously. The hardcore CFL fans who watch like all the games, when these guys shine in the CFL, they know who they are, obviously. But some of these people in Canada are clueless. They don't know who these guys are because they're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I noticed the pattern in the CFL. Every couple of years, you have this up and coming like star receiver from the NCAA. He's killing the league, but like I'm clueless. I'm like, yeah, this guy may be an amazing player. I see him making great plays on the field. But I don't know who he is. I don't know where he came from. He came from this American school that I don't even know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Whereas the Canadian athletes, when they say this athlete played at Wilfrid Laurier, I can relate to him more because I know Wilfrid. I know the University of Wilfrid Laurier. I know St. Andrews University. I know Laval. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the Canadian CFL fans, they keep track of the CFL draft and everything on the website and everything, the media, press conferences and everything. So they're up to date with the Canadian players, but they have no clue about these American players. That's sincere. That's why your league's not growing. No hate, son. Yeah. 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 Well, Ivan, who's the most popular player in the CFL right now? Nathan Rook. Some people are calling Nathan Rook the face of the CFL. I just saw the thing on YouTube, right, when I was looking on my phone. It said, is Nathan Rook the face of the CFL? So Nathan Rook is a Canadian quarterback starter in the CFL. He doesn't even have a great comp, and yet they're already calling him the face of the CFL. Because they're doing their very best to promote the Canadian talent, because that's what builds more buzz for the league. And that's how you know CFL, the Canadian talent in Canada is worth more than the American talent. But like what you're doing is you're limiting the opportunity for the Canadian stars and you're promoting the American talent in the Canadian Football League when you should be promoting the Canadian talent in the Canadian Football League, not the American talent. Right, and that's risky, man. Like the quality will drop. Yes, it will drop maybe by 5%. It won't make that much of a difference, guys. The league, the value of your CFL league will go up. Yeah, man. The fans in Canada are gonna love your league more, and you're gonna make more money. Because right now, you guys, your league is not growing. Yeah. Sarah? Why does CFL have a lot of sponsorship? Yeah, CFL has a lot of sponsorship from big companies, but They don't have the kind of sponsorships that like the NFL and all these big four leagues have, because it's not that big of a league compared to those leagues. That's why the CFL doesn't have like huge television deal. Well, like the CFL gets like 50 million a year from TSN for every season. Like that's a lot of money, but it's not like the multi-billion-dollar deal that the NFL is making, right? It's a small little league compared to the NFL. It's a big league, but it's a small little league compared to the NFL, right? So if you want to grow it, guys, this is how you grow the league. There you go. Some center. Yeah. But guys, this league will never be the NFL. But if you want to grow this league to a $400 million a year revenue business, this is how you grow the league. You gotta, okay, Ivan, what do you want to do? Okay, man, I know you guys are gonna think I'm crazy saying this, man. Ivan, what? Okay, get rid of the American talent. You know what I'm saying? All of the CFO committees like, Ivan, are you crazy? You want to get rid of the American talent? Like Ivan, man, the American players are what makes are what makes this game almost as competitive as the NFL. Yes, they do, but like no one in Canada cares about these guys, man. They're rejects. No one really cares about these guys. That's the truth. Ivan, they care. Well, okay. Well, you guys promote them on your on the nationwide TSN promo for every game. You promote all these QBs and everything, and yet like you're not getting more viewership. Your league's not growing. No one really cares about these guys because they're American players who come up here, and the fans are clueless who these guys are. They don't know who these guys are, man. Why? Some of them know. Yeah, some of the fans know who these guys are when they're stars, but they don't really resonate with them because they're American players, and they didn't watch these guys in the NCAA when they come up here. They're clueless. They don't know. Whereas the Canadian players, they know a lot of these guys. This guy played at, you know what I'm saying? And even if the Canadian people don't know some of the Canadian guys, obviously, they can relate to them more because they're Canadian, and all you Canadians in Canada, you know all the schools. Yeah, we know. Yeah, you know all the schools in the CIS. Yeah, I don't know this Canadian player, but because he's Canadian, I can relate with him more. I'm more invested in watching these guys because they're Canadian. They're worth more. Yeah, I don't know this Canadian guy, but he this guy played at Wilfrid Laurier. Yeah, I know Wilfrid Laurier. I saw a few CIS games where they can relate with him more, obviously. But all the CFL fans know all the draft picks and everything. They know all the Canadian players, most of them, right? And a lot of people in Canada are familiar with a lot of the Canadian players too, and they can relate with them more. Whereas they don't really know much about these American guys. Obviously. You know what I'm saying? The new upcoming guys. The veteran players, they know the CFL fans who watch the games. But not all of them know who these guys are because they don't really care about the American guys, right? They don't really care about these guys. Oh, Hamilton, yeah. Yeah. And your older stepbrother really tell you that the American players, yeah, he's like, there's a bias in the league towards the American players, and the coaches and the GMs, they just love all these American stars in the CFL. They love them, man. They treat them like gods and everything because they're the stars of the league and they're American players. Yeah, they may be the stars of the league guys and they're American players and they're a bit better than the Canadian players, but they're rejects, and these Canadian fans don't really care about these guys, man. They don't really care about these guys. Yeah, man. They don't really care about these guys. Yeah. I think I might get a coffee. I'm a little tired. And after this, after I watch this, I'm going to bed. I had like 4 hours of sleep today. So after I watch the show, I'm going to go to sleep. And tomorrow morning, I have to go to the bank and I got to go to the welfare office. Tomorrow's my due date, right? My last day, so I have to go to the welfare office tomorrow. I didn't go today. I was lazy. I took today off for the pool place, guys. I went 30 days straight and I finally took today off. I was tired. I'll go tomorrow. So I took 1 day off in 30 days, right? I went for 1 month straight. I took the day off. Yeah. So tomorrow's day 31 for me, right? But I guarantee you all these CFL coaches and GMs are like, I man, you're crazy, man. Like, I don't think this would work, man. Like, you're crazy, man. You if you were CFL GM, you would get rid of the American talent in the CFL and just have Canadian talent. I even the quality will go down, man. Yeah, but it won't go down by much, guys. It won't really make that much of a difference, right? Or even the quality will drop. Yeah, it'll drop by maybe what 6%. Like it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It'll drop a little bit, but it's still high quality football. Obviously, yeah. And now people will no longer see the CFL as a little bit of a minor league because there's no NFL rejects playing up here. It's the best players in Canada. It's the Canadian Football League, the greatest players in Canada playing. Even though the CFL is not a minor league, a lot of people see it a little bit as a minor league because the league is filled with all these NFL rejects that the NFL, you know what I'm saying, from the States. Obviously, that's why a lot of people see the CFL as a little bit of a minor league and they don't really respect the league as much because all these American guys who are amazing players who play up here, you know what I'm saying, the Canadians up here, they know, even though they love them and they love the American players, they don't really resonate with them. They don't know who they are, and they know these guys. Yeah, these guys are amazing players, but they're rejects from the NFL. Like fuck, man. I don't really care about these guys. Yeah, they don't. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. All the NFL guys like, yeah, Ivan. So that's why you Canadians don't really care that much about the American guys playing in the CFL. Yes, because us Canadians, we know the American players who play up here are rejects from your NFL. That's why we don't really care about those guys. Obviously, because we know they're not they may be amazing talent, but they're American and we don't really care that much about them. We can't resonate them. We don't know who they are when they come up here, and we know they're not the best talent in America. We know you guys in the NFL are the best talent in America, but they're your rejects from your NFL. That's why us Canadian players don't really care about the American guys playing up here. Us Canadian guys. I'm sorry. So that's why all the players are live. So that's why the Canadians are worth more than the American players who come up to the CFL, even though they're a bit better. Yeah, because even though the American players who come up to the CFL are a bit better than the best Canadian players in Canada, in most cases, not all of them are better, but in most cases, on average, they're better by a bit. Like, you know what I'm saying? The Canadian players who are drafting the CFL are actually the best players in Canada, or the greatest players in Canada. It's like all you guys who play in the NFL are the best players who play in the NCAA, right? The best players in the the best Canadian players in the CFL are the best players playing in Canada. Obviously, the best of the best. Just like all you guys who play in the NFL are the best of the best NCAA players, right? You got drafted, right? Or, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a good point. That's why the Canadian players are more valuable than the American players. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. You're a genius. I know I'm a genius. I'm saying, you know. I know the American players playing in the CFL much better than Canadian players. No, there's not that much of a difference, but they're a bit better. Obviously, they have a bit of an edge in talent than the Canadian players, obviously, because they have better training in the NCAA. The NCAA is a better league than the CIS, obviously. Some Sarah. Yeah. Yeah. But they're not much better, right? They're a little bit better than the Canadian players. They're not much better. There's not that really much of a difference, but they're a bit better than on average than the Canadian players. They have the edge over the Canadian players in talent because you know what I'm saying. That's why the CFL has a bias towards the American players because they believe that okay, even though these guys are NFL rejects, because they're American and I'm saying? And they, who come up here, obviously. And they have a bit of an edge over our best Canadian players, and they put on more of a show. It creates a better gaming experience for the fans who watch television. That's what the league thinks, obviously, which is true. But even though these American athletes coming up here are amazing players, obviously, and they're putting on a show for the fans in Canada, you notice how, guys, and you promote the heck out of them on a TSN promo on television and stuff. You notice how the league is not growing and no one really cares about these guys because they're unknowns. They can't resonate with them. They're American players. No one know who these guys are. They may be putting on a show, but the fans really want to see the Canadian players have a spotlight in the league. But they know that's never going to happen. And that's why the Canadian fans don't really care that much about the CFL guys. Because they know you guys have your bias towards all these American players. They want to see the Canadian guys have the spotlight. Yeah. All the analysts, man, that's crazy, man. The CFL's biased. Yeah, they're biased, man, towards the American players in our fucking league. Yeah, but why, man? They're a bit better than you guys, man. Yeah, they're a bit better than us, but look, guys, no one in Canada really cares about these guys, man. They don't really care about these American guys, right? That's the truth. Don't hate them. Yeah, it's the truth. Yeah. Nathan Rourke is the face of the CFL, guys. But he's a Canadian starting quarterback. That's all you know. The Canadian players are more valuable to the CFL than the American players they are. And that's the truth, right? Yeah. I told you the Trey Ford story. Last season, Trey Ford had a few starting opportunities in the CFL. He was doing good and everything. He's an amazing quarterback, obviously. He was a first overall pick. He played in the CIS. He was a first round pick in the CFL. He got a starting opportunity. You know what I'm saying? He was a starter this year, obviously, but last year he had a starting opportunity, obviously, and then they benched him for this American guy from the NCAA. The NCAA quarterback was doing terrible, and all the fans in that stadium were rooting for Trey Ford. Put Trey Ford. They said something like "Put Trey Ford back" or something like that. They were all like roaring. The whole stadium was rooting for Trey Ford. They didn't care about the American player. Yeah, man. That's how you know CFL. There's a bigger demand and market for the Canadian players in the CFL than the American talent. The American talent may be a bit better, but everyone up here in Canada don't really care about these guys, man. They don't really care about these guys. That's the truth, right? No, listen, yeah. The fans love the Canadian players more than the American players. That's how it works, right? Do they love the American players live up in Canada? Yeah, they do. If you're a CFL star up here, if you're, you know what I'm saying, all you NCAA athletes who play in the NCAA who want to make the NFL and you don't get your opportunity or you get cut from the NFL and you end up here in the CFL, you guys will see what I mean. If you come up here and you get to be a CFL star, the fans up here in Canada will love you. Obviously, they're gonna love you. Obviously, if you're a CFL star, but they don't really care that much about you guys. That's the truth, right? Yeah. Like they'll ask for autographs and everything. They'll love you and everything. But even though they ask for autographs, they love the CFL stars up here. Like I love this guy. He's a star, but I don't really know that much about him. He's just a guy who came up here. He's a CFL star. I love him, but he's American. I didn't see him in college in NCAA. I can't resonate with him. He's American. I love this guy, but I don't really care that much about him. You guys know what I'm saying? They don't really care that much about the American players. They love the American players and the fans of them and everything, but they don't really resonate with these guys. They don't know who they are that much because they're American. They don't even know where these guys came from. They don't really care about these guys. I'm right 24. You want to say, you're right. All right, you're a genius and all the G. So I'm saying, yeah. So Sarah. Whereas the star Canadian players, the fans actually can resonate with them because they're Canadian. They have their bias, obviously. And a lot of the fans in the CFL, they know this guy played at this CIS university. They can relate to them more. They know a little about these more about the Canadian players and the American. They know about the Canadian players. They don't know anything about these American guys. They're just guys who come out of nowhere from the NCAA and they play up here, and they don't have a clue who these guys are. So, Sarah, yeah. Oh, do you think the CFL will ever make that change? No, they're never going to make that change because the CFL has to give the American players who do not get their NFL opportunity a shot to play pro football up here, even though the NFL doesn't give us Canadian players an opportunity to play down south. Yeah, see, Canadian players in Canada get very limited NFL opportunities, obviously, but usually in the CFL draft, a lot of CFL players in the first round, a lot of them do get NFL opportunities, but they might get an NFL tryout, they get released, or they're unsigned, undrafted free agents. And in rare cases, some players get drafted. Very rare for a star CIS first round pick to get drafted. There's a few guys who got drafted, obviously. The chances are they'll either have an NFL tryout or they're undrafted signed free agents. But if they are undrafted signed free agent, chances are the Canadian player will end up on the practice roster in the NFL, because the NFL has a bias towards the Canadian players. And don't forget, on average, the American players have an edge over the Canadian players, right? On average in talent by a bit. So the NFL limits us Canadian players an opportunity to play in the NFL, even though the Canadian players only care about the NFL, and the CFL is limiting the opportunity for the Canadian players and giving more opportunities for the American players. When the NFL, the Americans limit the opportunity for the Canadians to play in the NFL, and the CFL limit the opportunity for the Canadians to play in the CFL when this is our league. And you're giving much more opportunities for the American players in America, a bigger opportunity to play in the Canadian Football League. Is that fair, guys? I'm being honest, man. Is that fair? Yeah, but Ivan, the reason why we do that is because the American talent, the American guys are a little bit better than you guys, better than the Canadian guys. That's why you got to get rid of them, man. Get rid of the American guys if you want to fix this problem. Sarah? Yeah. Get rid of the American guys in the States who come here, right? Get rid of them. Yeah. Yeah. I guarantee you, VJ Iverman, that's cold, man. And up north in Canada, there really is a bias. Yeah, VJ. Up north in Canada, there's a bias in the CFL towards the American players. In our fucking league, man. It's fucking sad. And all you CFL stars, Ivan, fuck you, man. The reason why we're starting up here, Ivan, is because we're a bit better than you Canadian guys. Yes, you are, but look, man, the fans up here don't really care that much about you guys, man. That's the truth, man. Don't hate him, son. Yeah. And we're more valuable than you guys up here. You know it. Yeah. All the NFL active, that's cold, man. Yeah, man. Most CFL, even first round picks, end up playing special teams in the CFL. And that's why CFL, a lot of these CIS all-star athletes, who, you know what I'm saying, the best players in CIS who get drafted in the CFL, a lot of them retire and they quit pro football up here because you're limiting their opportunity, man. And you're losing a lot of good Canadian talent, all because of your bias towards the American players, who no one in Canada really cares that much about. Ivan, the reason why the American players are the stars of CFL is because they're a bit better than the Canadian players. Yes, they are, guys, but look, man, the league is not growing, and people in Canada don't resonate with these guys. They don't care that much about these guys. That's the truth, man. They don't really care that much about those guys, man. Yeah. Just like the American players don't care that much about the Canadian players either in America, right? Because they have their bias. The NFL also has a bias towards Canadian players. They don't care that much about Canadian players because they have a bias towards the Canadian players. Just, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, the Canadians up here have a bias towards the Canadian players too. And they also have a bias towards the American players, obviously, because they're American, right? They can't relate to them. They don't know who these guys are. They don't resonate with them. Yeah, they're amazing talent, but they're what? Yeah, obviously. Some Sarah? Yeah. Yeah. Why to the CFL? Yeah, because of the CFL's bias towards the American players, like the CFL is losing a lot of great American talent, man, like to retirement because of their bias, man. You're limiting the opportunities for the Canadian uh, best players to play pro football. You're giving all the opportunities to all these American guys who don't want to be in the CFL to begin with. They're only here because they had no choice. They didn't get enough opportunity. They're not good enough in the NFL. Yeah, guys, the American guys who come up here, their dream is not playing in the CFL. Their dream is playing in the NFL. They're only playing in the CFL because they didn't get their NFL opportunity or they're not good enough in the NFL. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Was the best Canadian players, their dream is to play up here, guys, in the CFL. And then, yeah, but we're still nice. We still draft the best Canadian players. Yes, you do, but like the draft is bullshit and it's a crapshoot. That's why the fans don't really care about it because they can't take you guys seriously because even though you draft them, saying, "Oh my God, no, you see the commissioner. This CFL pick is a six overall pick. He got drafted six overall to the Calgary Stampeders. Congratulations." You know what I'm saying? You see the GM, he calls the player. The player's all excited and everything. And then like, you get the news that like half those draft picks got released and all these like first round, second, third round picks are all playing special teams, and all the American guys are playing in the league. So the draft is kind of like a waste, and it's a crapshoot. And it's kind of pointless. It's a pointless draft. Well, I mean, it's not pointless. Like we're still giving them, they're still playing pro football. Yes, they're giving the Canadian players an opportunity to play football, but most of these draft picks don't even see the light of day in the league, man. They all play special teams, and you're giving all the American guys the opportunity to play to start, obviously, in the CFL, obviously. From Sarah, yeah, that's why a lot of these Canadian the amazing Canadian talent in the CFL and the CIS, the best players in CIS who get drafted, a lot of them retire. Like this is bullshit. I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm just gonna pursue another career. I'm done because they can't take the bullshit, man. They can't take the bias of the CFL, and that's why CFL you're losing a lot of great talent, Canadian talent in the CFL. You know what I'm saying? Because of your bias, because you're limiting the opportunity for the amazing Canadian players in Canada to actually shine up here. And you're giving all these American guys their opportunity to shine up here, which the fans up in Canada don't really care that much about. That's what I'm saying. And don't forget, CFL. A lot of these star CFL players, when they get NFL opportunities, a lot of them take that opportunity, and a lot of these GMs in the CFL they lose a lot of these star players to the NFL because this was not their dream to begin with. Their dream was to play in the NFL. It wasn't playing in the CFL. So keep that in mind, guys. Right? Yeah. So if you don't want to worry about that, that's why you got to get rid of the American talent. Because once you have all the best Canadian players playing in the CFL, a lot of these GMs don't have to worry about the best. Some of these great Canadian players who kill the CFL, obviously, if the league was all Canadian, they'll get NFL opportunities, but a lot of them will probably end up turning it down. That's what Sarah? Yeah. Because the Canadians in the CFL and the CFL don't really care that much about. They don't care about the NFL. It's very rare for a star Canadian player in the CFL to take an NFL opportunity. Enoch Mwamba, the first overall pick back in 2011, he played at Santa Fe, obviously. The first overall pick at Santa Fe, obviously, the CIS University for the CFL. He played, and he was the first overall pick in the CFL. He played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He killed the league as a Canadian starting linebacker, and he had an NFL opportunity. He took his NFL opportunity. Obviously, but I told you when he went to the NFL, the NFL had a bias towards him. As in the preseason game, he had the most tackles on his team as a Canadian player, and yet they put him on the practice roster. That's how you know the NFL has a bias towards Canadian players. Obviously. Yeah. So there are some Canadian players who do take NFL opportunities, but it's very rare. Chances are if a Canadian player in the CFL who kills the CFL gets NFL opportunities, they don't really care. They turn it down because they know their chances of playing the NFL is not high. Because don't forget, on average, the American players have the edge over the Canadian players. And the Canadian players in Canada aren't stupid. They know that you you NFL, you have a bias towards the Canadian players. Yeah, we do. We only like you Canadians. Yeah, okay, well, if you guys are going to have a bias towards us Canadian players in Canada, then why the fuck should us Canadian players, like, you know what I'm saying, what? Have all you American guys come up here and what? And take the spotlight away from us Canadian players when this is not even your league, man. How's that fair? It's not fair. I'm talking to all you CFL American players. How the fuck is that fair, guys? Your NFL does barely gives Canadian players an opportunity to play down south. And then the CFL limits the opportunities for Canadians, and they give all these American guys their time to shine up here. How's that fair, guys? All right, you got a good point there. The NFL limits the opportunities for the Canadian players. Yes, they do. And then, you know what I'm saying? And the CFL also limits the opportunities for the Canadian players too. So in both pro leagues in both countries, they limit the opportunity for the Canadian players. And it's all about the Americans shining. Either because they're a bit better than the Canadian players. That's why you got to get rid of them, man. You have your bias towards the Americans, CFL. You know what I'm saying? You got to get rid of the American talent. Oh, hey, I'm saying. And what? You're blinded. I know, you guys are blinded by the American talent, man. You think because the American players who come up here are a bit more talented than Canadian players, this is somehow going to grow the league. Ivan, this is how we grow the league. So you think the best way to grow the Canadian Football League is by promoting the American talent in a Canadian league with Canadian people? That's how you guys think. That's what you guys think is the best way to grow the league? Yo, Ivan, that's the best way. No, it's not. As you guys have been trying your best to promote these players in the CFL for years, and you're seeing very minimal growth, man, because what? A lot of these people in Canada, they don't really resonate that much with these American guys. They don't really care that much about these guys. That's the truth. Oh, Jameson, yeah. So, Sarah? All the NFL athletes are Ivan. Do star CFL players make more than star Canadian players? No, they don't. If a Canadian player up here in Canada is a star player in the CFL, that Canadian player will make more money than the star American player, because the league sees the star Canadian players as more valuable because they're Canadian. It's supply and demand, obviously, and they know the Canadians are more valuable to the Canadian fans. They can market them more. They're more valuable. They like you guys know. Yeah, I mean, they're more valuable. But we don't want to take that risk, man. We want to. What? Give the Americans a spotlight to shine because they put on a show. Yeah, you guys are blinded by the American talent, man. UCFL. You think that's how you grow the league by promoting the American talent? It's not how you grow the league, guys. You promote the Canadian talent. Sarah? Yeah. Yeah, you know how valuable you know how valuable the Canadian players are to the American compared to the American players. Zach Caleros is a starting quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He's American. He took the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to the Grey Cup, the CFL Championship 5 years in a row. He's a 5-time Grey Cup appearance quarterback. He won 2 championships, and he lost 3. I believe he's the third highest paid quarterback in the league. Number 1 is Nathan Rourke, and I think second was Trey Ford, who's Canadian, I believe. And I think Zach Caleros is third. Nathan Rourke makes more than Zach Caleros, and Zach Caleros has like 5 Grey Cup appearances, and Nathan Rourke is only like in his second or third year in the CFL, and yet he's the highest paid quarterback in the CFL. Why? Because he's Canadian, and Nathan Rourke is pretty much the face of the CFL right now. He is the face of the CFL because he's Canadian and he's a quarterback too. Because quarterbacks in pro football leagues are the most famous players in the league, right? They're like the franchise players of the team. And Nathan Rourke is pretty much the face of the CFL right now because he's Canadian, man. And that's how you know CFL. There's much more marketing potential with the Canadian players than the American players. You just got to promote the heck out of these Canadian guys, and your league will grow, and you'll make more money, and you'll get much bigger sponsorship deals for your league. Obviously, because don't forget, all the sponsors who sponsor the CFL are all Canadian-based brands, right? So it's very tough. Don't hate him saying it's very tough for all these Canadian sponsorship companies in Canada to sponsor the CFL when the CFL is marketing American talent. It's very tough. Yeah, it's very tough to market the CFL with our sponsorship, even though it's amazing football and everything. Like you know what I'm saying, the majority of the star talent is American talent in a Canadian branded league. Very weird, obviously. That's why the league has no growth, in my opinion, right? Oh, Hamilton, yeah. Sarah? Yeah. Ivan, most of the starting Canadian players in the CFL are old linemen. Yeah, the majority of the starting positions in the CFL are Canadian linemen. Old linemen, yeah. Each team starts on average about maybe 4. They'll start maybe 4 Canadian linemen and maybe 1 American lineman in the CFL on average. Most of the start players in the CFL are the old linemen, obviously, and receivers too. There's quite a bit of Canadian star receivers in the CFL, but the majority of the star players are the American players, obviously. Even old linemen, yeah, the majority of the star Canadian players in the CFL are old linemen, man. Most teams start on average like maybe 4 Canadian linemen in the CFL, and maybe one American O line. And then they'll start maybe 1 Canadian receiver, one Canadian receiver, and then maybe one Canadian corner, and then maybe one Canadian D lineman, and that's it. And the rest of the star players are the American players. Even they make the game better, man. The game experience better. I know they do, guys. They put on more. I know the American players are amazing players who come here. They put on more of a show, but I mean, your league is not growing because the fans in Canada don't resonate with them. You promote them on the TSM promo. No one really cares about them because they don't resonate with them. They're American. No one really cares about these guys, man. That's the truth, man. I don't need to be an asshole, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, Sire. Almost on it, guys. This is what I'll do is if I'll CFL commissioner, obviously. But the CFL will never do this, man. It's not going to happen, man. Because the CFL needs to give the. I know we have to give the American. Yeah, I know, guys. We have to give the American players in the states who didn't get their NFL opportunity or were not good enough in the NFL to play pro football. I know, guys. That's why it's never going to happen. And I know the CFL is blinded by the bias of the American talent. If the American talent's so good, but even the leftovers that come here are amazing talent. Yeah, they are. Even the leftover guys who come here are amazing players in the CFL. But I mean, the fans in Canada don't really resonate well with them. They don't really know who these guys are. They don't really resonate with them because they're American. They care more about the Canadian players. That's the truth, right? Yeah. Obviously. Well, even when they're CFL stars, the fans love them. Yes, they do. I know they love them and everything. I know the CFL fans, when the American players put on a show and I'm saying, and they become CFL stars in the league, the fans love them and everything. But like the league is not growing because the Canadian players, even though they love all these American guys, they don't really know who they are. You know what I'm saying? Even they know who they are. They know their names and everything. They love them. Yeah, they know their names and everything when they become stars and everything. But they can't resonate with them because they're American. They don't really care about them. They don't know. They don't really have any information about these guys. Like, yeah, they're just guys who came up here from the NCAA. They don't even know what NCAA school they went to. They don't know anything about these guys. They know their names now because they're CFL stars and they love them and everything. They're amazing players, but they're American. They don't really know that much about them. They don't really care that much about these guys, man. That's the truth. Even they care, they love them. Yes, I know they do, but they don't love them the way they love the Canadian stars, guys. You guys, I'm saying, don't hear him saying, yeah. Sarah? Almost on it, guys. Yeah. How do you know the CFL doesn't really care about the Canadian players? Okay, I remember there was a commissioner. He was the CFL hired an American commissioner to work in the CFL. The CFL pushed for 5 Canadian stars instead of 7. The league said no, we can't do that. We have to give the Canadian players a little bit more of opportunity. They're willing to even decrease the ratio to 5 Canadian starters in the CFL and have the other 2 spots open for an American player. And that's how you know the league doesn't really care about the Canadian players, man. All the American players, man, that's cold, man. Yeah, man. The Canadian players have limited opportunity up here to play pro football. There are some Canadian players who end up playing football in Europe, but like the Canadian players don't want to play in Europe because Europe football is a huge drop in quality from the CFL. That's why a lot of them end up retiring, obviously. But some Canadian players get Europe football opportunity, but they turn it down because Europe football is pretty bad compared to like Canada, the CFL, obviously. Yeah. Jim Center. All the NFL players I've met, if you were a CFL commissioner and you pitch this to the CFL committee, they would laugh you off. Yeah, they laugh me off. They think I'm crazy. Just like the Olympic committee, they laughed Herb Brooks off when Herb Brooks said, "Okay, for my team USA, I don't want any NHL athletes. I want the best college players in Canada." And they laughed him off. Like, you think these college kids can beat the Soviets? Are you crazy, Herb Brooks? And Herb Brooks pulled it off. Just like the CFL committee would think I'm crazy. Ivan, you want to get rid of the American talent in the CFL? Are you on drugs? Are you crazy? Like, the quality's gonna dip, and you're not gonna get as good quality football. But guys, be honest. How big of a drop will it be in quality? Well, not that much, Ivan, but there'll be a drop in quality. Yes, there'll be a drop in quality, but if you promote the Canadian homegrown talent in the CFL, you're gonna boost the league revenue, man. You're gonna get higher television views. More Canadians will tune in. And the fans are going to love these Canadian players more because they can resonate with them. They know a lot of these. They know these guys from CIS University, and the fans will actually care more about your drafts now because they know a lot of these players you're drafting are going to be CFL stars. They're not going to be playing special teams or sitting on the bench. They're going to be stars. Right, Sarah? That's why CFL, the fans in Canada don't really care about your CFL draft because they know your draft is bullshit. It's a crapshoot. And you CFL GMs and coaches know what I'm talking about. I'm right 24. Yeah, Ivan, you're right. The CFL draft is like a crapshoot. It's kind of bullshit. Yeah, it's bullshit, man. Because most of these players will never get their opportunity to shine on the field. A few of them will, but most of them end up on special teams and get released. They end up in a practice roster. It's a crapshoot. All the spotlight is given to the American players. That's how it works, right? Yeah. I'm gonna watch the show. I'm going to bed, guys. I'm tired after this, right? I'm going to bed at like 1 o'clock. In the morning, I gotta go to the bank and I gotta go to the welfare office. Yeah. Yeah. And guys, if you have the CFL be the best Canadian players played in Canada, the league will be a more respected league now. And it will no longer be, even though the CFL is not a minor league, a lot of people see it a little bit as a minor league because, you know what I'm saying, you have the NFL rejects playing up here. That's why the CFL is kind of seen as a minor league because, yeah, obviously. Because even though the American players playing in the CFL are amazing players, they're not the best American talent. That's why even though the CFL is not a minor league, some people see it a little bit as a minor league. They don't respect the league as much because a lot of these American guys who come here are not, they're NFL rejects, and the fans don't really care about. And they're not the best talent playing in America in the CFL. Whereas if you get rid of those American guys, I don't hate them, I'm saying the CFL will now be a more respected league, and it will no longer be seen as a minor league because the players playing pro football up in Canada are the greatest players who ever played the game in Canada. It's the best of the best in Canada. Obviously, it's no longer looked at as a minor league. A bit of a minor league, right? The CFL is not a minor league. It's its own pro league up here in Canada, but because you have the rejects from NFL rejects playing up here, you know what I'm saying, who are not the best talent in the States, some people see it as the CFL as a little as a minor league. Obviously, and the league is not as respected, obviously, as much because the American players playing up here, even though they're amazing players, they are amazing players, almost as good as your NFL, obviously, amazing fucking players. But they're what? Because they're rejects and they're what? They're not the best American talent. Obviously, that's why a lot of people see the CFL as a little bit of a minor league. Whereas if you get rid of the American players, the CFL will now be a more respected league because it actually is the best players playing in Canada, playing pro football in Canada. So you have the best of the best playing pro football in the States, and you have the best of the best playing pro football in Canada. You guys see the picture here? I don't know, and I'm saying that makes sense. I heard Jesus, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. The NFL has a few Canadian players playing in the NFL. Yeah, but I don't know, maybe like 6, 7 Canadian players. And chances are those Canadian players are not starting and they're all on the practice roster. NFL has maybe 6, 7, 8 Canadian players playing there right now. And most of them are probably in the practice roster or playing special teams, whatever it is. The Canadian players have very limited opportunity there. So why are you giving all these American guys much more opportunity up here in Canada when the NFL limits the opportunity for us Canadian players? How's that fair, right? Yeah. Well, I knew before I was Canada, do the Canadians and the Canadians in Canada respect the American CFL stars? Yes, they do. They respect them a lot. They respect them all. I respect those guys. They're still CFL pro amazing athletes, obviously. They respect those guys a lot, you know what I'm saying? They love them and everything. Because they're American players and they don't really resonate with them, they don't really care that much about them. And they know, even though they're amazing players, they're not the best talent in America. They're rejects. They're rejects from the NFL. That's my point, right? I don't need to be an asshole, guys. That's just the truth, man. Us Canadian fans up here, even though you American players are amazing players, you play amazing football up here, high level football up here, because you're rejects from the NFL and you're American and they don't really resonate with you guys, they don't really care that much about you guys that much compared to the Canadian players. That's the point, right? Fuck you, why, man? You're such a fucking dick, man. Well, you American players put us Canadian players down too in Canada, right? You think we're horrible players and we suck and everything. Yeah, there you go. Gary is here, don't hang us on the hour. Yeah. Before I was kind of here, let me ask this question, CFL. If you did a CFL promo of even though Brandon Bridge retired, obviously, if you did a CFL promo of Brandon Bridge, a star Canadian quarterback, Trey Ford, and Nathan Rourke, and you market them in the CFL, the panel's talking about them and everything. Oh my God, these players are playing up against each other. Versus, I don't know, Bo Levi Mitchell, Zach Caleros, and I don't know, another American quarterback. Which promo? What will resonate more with the Canadian fans? Be honest. The American players, Ivan, you're lying. The Canadian quarterbacks will resonate more with the Canadian fans, and you'll be more buzz. and you're gonna get more viewership and more people will tune in because they can relate with the Canadian players and they know these guys. And the Canadian players, the Canadian fans over here, they love the Canadian players. It'll be a more popular league. Obviously, you have this rivalry with, I don't know, Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford, like the star Canadian quarterbacks in the CFL. You market that on TSN. You're telling me that will have less buzz than Bo Levi Mitchell and like Zach Hilario. Like, yeah, those guys are a bit better players, but the fans in Canada don't really resonate them. They don't really care about them because they're American players. No, you know what I'm saying? They don't really care that much about those guys. They care more about the Canadian guys. Am I right, Dwayne? Yeah, Ivan, you're right. That's true. I was saying, I agree with Jason. I'm a Jason. I'm saying, yeah. Okay. I don't really mind it. Yeah. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys really show about the difference in the American players and the Canadian players in the CFL. Hope you enjoy this nice show. Stay tuned for my video tomorrow, guys. Peace out, guys. Only am 10.